And we're back with comments. I said gas bladders. Um, make them float. In fact, dinosaurs already did that one. The hollow bones, a characteristic of the feature sauropods. Well, I mean, it's not the same as gas bladders. Gas bladders are gigantic sacks of gas. I mean, the bones is good and everything, but then you still have to have light and air gas in it, and you don't have that as much. Gas bladders are more like actually having gigantic sacks of gas. Cloudiness. And, is not bladders floaty. I am right. Let's move on from that. However, there is a different thing that I have to mention. A longer day, more heat, and the globe warming is still the Earth stops spinning. The gravity gets so low we float off. I mean, and they said never and never. Um, longer day, more heat, long bit more time, and the global warming. Anyway, so what's the two nevers? I don't understand. But anyhow, moving on. The Earth will never stop rotating, barring some catastrophic impact. Gravity is not decreasing. Gravity is a property of the mass of the Earth. It's not. Well, not exactly. The mass and gravity is interesting thing enough that there's something to do with mass. And what if instead we are, by our mass, blocking certain things so that other stuff is pulled towards the mass because of an energy field transition, something, something. Kind of magnetistic, but whatever, I don't know, something. But also, gravity is property, it means the Earth is a property of mass, therefore it is not decreased in a significant way until the sun dies. Even if the sun dies, the planet would probably still have mass. Of course, when the sun dies, it's going to turn into a big ball of stuff that's going to engulf even our area. However, if gravity were to push us away with any amount of force, we wouldn't actually stay in that area. We have a potential of living. But however, the Earth not stop spinning barring a catastrophic impact, I have to wonder, is that true? And the answer to that is that, like a moon that goes tidally locked, what if the Earth becomes tidally locked? Because eventually the push and pull of another thing forcing it into a tidal lock system. Is that even possible for Earth and the Sun system? And the answer to that is, ironically, because of the way that the Earth is, it's not like the moon, and the way the Sun is, it's not like the Earth. It's not as likely that the Earth could become tidally locked with the Sun. However, there are planets that go around stars that are tidally locked. So it's not saying that you can't have that. And so gravity gets so low that you float off is not exactly false because as like I mean there's not many examples of this. Um, but like, yeah, no, I guess that doesn't work because you'd have to have something to like. Well, okay, here's the thing. It wouldn't get so low that we would float off. I guess. Um, but then you gotta wonder, like, the rotation of the Earth and all that jazz, and how that works, and how if you have the rotation stop, there is no longer any push towards that part of the planet, which is literally all of the planet. And so, again, in the supposed North Pole of the rotation of the Earth, up there, there is less gravity, but there's still gravity. And that's analogous to being on a place that's not spinning as much. So we already have the idea of that. So therefore, it is not exactly wrong to say that if it slows enough, you could at the poles jump off and just fly off, possibly. There's not a lot holding you down. Um, but then we gotta talk about the idea of um, could you actually fall off, and is it a thing of mass? It's like, yeah, I did say gravity would get low. I didn't say that it would just turn off. There's a difference there. So the gravity based on mass is different, I'm pretty sure, than the gravity of the centrifugal stuff or whatever that's happening with the planet. So similar to people in a space station, which doesn't have mass, if this thing decides to not move, then you don't have any gravity to work with, and you just float around. So it's kind of me thinking of that nonsense, but there is just a ton of mass on the planet. So, I mean, yeah, gravity is not just mass, it's mass and rotation. You got to think both ways. So I'm just wondering at the point of, and would it work with a slow stop or would it work with a hard stop? Well, obviously, a hard stop would lead to a jolt that would make it so that people would just fly off um, to a certain degree, or they would fly upward and then fall back down due to gravity not being. But maybe they would be falling down slower than regular gravity because the gravity has slowed down maybe a bit. But the question is just how much of that is there, and there might be something to that. Um, but like if you're not flying off, the atmosphere sure as fuck is, because there's no reason an atmosphere in a non-spinning body wouldn't just get like you would still have like the magnetosphere and stuff, or the magnetic shielding, sorry. Um, but then with the lack of spinning, there would be bunch of stuff that would happen. And I'm still on about that and whatever. We just are losing atmosphere slowly. So, like, prove that. Okay. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at taurine. Yes, Earth is losing small amounts of atmosphere to space due to processes like thermal escape, solar winds, impacts, impacts my ass. Very slow trickle and stuff. But anyway, yeah, so we're losing atmosphere. That's a thing. Um, sun's increased brightness and stuff. You end up wondering if there's so much atmosphere, like at what point do we end up with a thin enough atmosphere that it isn't possible to stop the greenhouse stuff? And in fact, we're not wanting to get rid of everything. We just want to really convert it into something that will sustain us more. Oh, I did not like burping up that. There's a little nightmare fuel flurry. We are gasping our last breaths on this planet. It'll last for a billion years or so.